So work session to order. You would think I would get that right eventually. I'm going to call the Springfield City Council work session to order with a roll call.
Mayor Van Gordon.
Here.
Counselor Weber. Here. Counselor Mo.
Here.
Counselor Rodney. Here. Counselor Blackwell. Here. Counselor Buck.
Present.
And Counselor Stout.
Here, thank you. We have three work session items this evening. The first one is Planning Commission interviews, and Sandy Belson is here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sandy Belson. I'm the Comprehensive Planning Manager and staff to the Planning Commission. So tonight we have two more applicants for you to interview for position on the Planning Commission. We actually have two open positions, and you previously interviewed one other person. So we have Wendy Werner and Walter Depew. And I will also note that both of these people also applied for the Community Development Advisory Committee, and we didn't get sufficient applicants for them, so that would be an option as well.
And could you correct us? I believe the other person that we interviewed for Planning Commission, we were fine with moving forward.
Correct.
Okay, so we're interviewing two people for one spot, and if we can convince the other person into another spot, we can find a spot to place them.
Correct.
Okay.
And of the Planning Commission spots, we have one for 3 years to fill Counselor Buck's position, and then one 4-year term. So we would need direction on which one to go for 3 years and which one for 4.
And when you look out the next little bit, there's not anybody else that that we're planning to lose off Planning Commission at this point.
Not shortly, I hope.
Me too. All right, thank you. Would anybody have questions before we let Sandy sit back down? All right, I thought we were fine. All right, Wendy, do you want to come on up?
Hello.
Hello. So what attracted you to applying on the Planning Commission?
I'm interested in the development of Springfield. I've been a 30+ year resident and have seen a lot of changes and feel like I could offer some insight perspective.
In economic development and infrastructure are two major goals. If you think about how development happens, do you have any opinions on how costs should be shared between the developers and public?
I don't know enough to be able to answer that.
If you had a magic wand and you had the ability to change the development code, what would you change?
I would change some of the uses of public land.
Okay. And how do you see the city changing in the next 10 years? And how do you see the Planning Commission helping to change the city?
I feel that Springfield has a great opportunity for some growth. We have some empty buildings, and of course the economy is changing, and I feel that we are on the precipice of being able to influence some of those changes that are going to happen. For instance, I heard there may be a sports facility going in at the new Royal or the old Royal Caribbean, and I think that's pretty exciting, and I would love to see more things like that.
Could you describe the relationship between the Planning Commission and the City Council and then the city staff and the Planning Commission?
I believe that this role is to advise and give insight, but ultimately the elected officials get to make the decisions.
And I'm going to add one on the fly here, especially since the CDAC conversation is going on. Can you just, if we chose to ask you to serve on CDAC, is that something you would be willing to do?
Yes, that would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you. Yeah, sure. Wendy, come back.
Come back. I want to ask a follow-up question to number 2. You said that you would, if you could change something, or I think it's number 3, if you could wave a magic wand, change uses to public land. Do you have any examples of like what you're thinking about that?
Well, I think there's opportunity for some of the public land to be, how do you say, cut out for other uses. We have some great infrastructure here, but there is areas for opportunity to do some development outside of what things are already set. So, for instance, the pathways that are going down, there's some opportunity to put some retail locations along there, make it so it's more of a stop as people bike or walk down the mill. I think it's called the mill pathway.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Walter.
Well, thank you so much and good evening.
Thanks for coming down.
Of course.
I'm going to ask you the hard one first.
Absolutely.
Which is, if we asked you to apply, sit on the CDAC, is that something you're willing to do?
I would be open to that. Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you. What attracted you to sitting on the Planning Commission?
Well, I'll start by saying I'll try to keep this not long-winded. I had the questions and I was kind of prepping like I would back in my college days. But so I applied because I genuinely enjoy understanding how a community functions and grows. And I've reached a point in my life where I am ready to become more involved with the place I live. I've called it home for 27 years, which happens to be how old I am. And so over my time, I have seen it grow and change. And I can say I truly love this town, and it's, better than Eugene. We have that one. But I also see that it wasn't really for me about applying about politics or a future in that. It was more about wanting to be part of the thoughtful and practical process that will shape Springfield in small but meaningful ways. As a resident, I currently live in the urban growth boundary. And so I get to see some of the fears and the impacts that as the city expands, potential costs that might get relayed to homeowners, developers, or whoever owns apartment complexes, for example, sewer lines or other stuff being connected to homes. And so to have a voice for them on the commission, I think is very important.
Economic development and infrastructure are two major council goals. If you think about how development happens, do you have any opinions on how costs should be shared between developers and the public?
For that, I would say I tend to fall into a more pragmatic approach, looking at both sides. I think that costs should be reflective of both the impact of how of the development, and who benefits from the improvements. If a project is triggering a specific need for improvement that otherwise wouldn't be borne by the city in its normal day-to-day operations, for example, say we need to get turn lanes put in or utilities need to be extended into a property, I think that needs to be covered by the developer. Whereas if we're looking at infrastructure that has a broader and a more long-term community effect and impact. And so if it's something like increased system capacity for wastewater, or if we're dealing with improving major corridors and arteries or just older roads, I think that's something where the city has a reasonable role and almost an expectation to step in and help cover the costs and share it with the development, because it's going to be for the mutual benefit as the community as a whole, while also it shouldn't just be on the developer. I would ultimately just end that and say it's not about choosing one side or the other. The aim is to calibrate the costs so that the development remains viable, while the community isn't necessarily subsidizing a for-profit enterprise.
If you had a magic wand and had the ability to change Springfield Development Code, what would you change?
I'm not a homeowner, and I haven't really had anyone close to me have any run-ins with Springfield Development Code or issues, so I don't really have too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you like to see the city change in the next 10 years, and how do you see the Planning Commission helping that?
This is one where I actually kind of remember, I can see it now. And I remember when I was growing up spending time with one of my mom's coworkers, which was Jody Egan, and listening to her husband, Dan, the former Chamber of Commerce director, talking. And I see the need for it now for what he was envisioning. And I'll get to that. I'd like to see Springfield kind of become a place where families and young people have more of a reason to stay in town for entertainment and not just shoot over to Eugene. Because we have what used to be Gateway Mall, now it's the Shops at Gateway. We have Willamette Lane. We have somewhat, we could say, Roaring Rapids and Camp Putt over in Glenwood. But we don't have stuff like Valley River. We don't have arcades, bowling alleys, stuff that's family centered that people want to go to and enjoy. And so I think there's a real opportunity for that. And I think that the Planning Commission is there to support it by helping shape the land use policies and make recommendations that promote these entities, these businesses to come in and have a successful chance of staying established here.
Could you describe the relationship between the planning commission and the city council and then staff in the planning commission?
This is the one where I could have gone off because I was at Lane Community College and most of my time was on state and local politics. So this was a fun one for me. It was so the planning commission, the city council operate as a in a complementary kind of structured relationship. City council sets the policies, is the policy setting authority. So they adopt comprehensive plans, they do all the development approvals, they have the final say. Whereas the planning commission kind of works upstream of the council and works with the minutia. We become the filter. Commissioners conduct the detailed review of proposals, for example, like evaluating code amendments. But then after the planning commission conducts analysis, they have to compile all their information and their findings and present it generally as a variety of options to the city council for review and consideration. It basically becomes a two-step system. Council establishes where the city wants to go, and the planning commission helps to present the how of how can we get to that goal.
All right. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we have, sounds like two questions, potentially three. One of them is we need to find another person for planning commission. We need to give, and then we need to give, guidance on what term we want them to follow. And then the third term is whether or not we want to have ask the other person to serve on CDAC. So does somebody want to go first? It's gonna be a long night at this. Have Councilor Blackwell. She was.
Two excellent candidates. Again, thank you so much. I hope to see you both serving in some capacity. My choice for Planning Commission is Walter, and I would recommend Susan for, or Wendy. I'm sorry, Wendy. Sorry about that.
Councilor Rodley.
I actually have the same opinion that Councilor Blackwell does. I think these are both amazing candidates. This has been such a great season of candidates, and I have just loved meeting all of the new folks who want to get involved with Springfield. I would recommend Walter for the Planning Commission, and I think Wendy would be fantastic, especially with those thoughts about other businesses and other places for CDAC. So thank you.
I think Wendy has a little bit to learn yet, so she may be a little bit early for her. So I think Walter is the best choice.
Anybody else? Councilor Weber.
I agree with my colleagues. I think Walter is the right candidate at this time for the Planning Commission, and I would love to see Wendy on CDAC.
I'm getting thumbs up from Councilor Stout. Do you want to add anything? Okay.
Guys are awesome.
Well,
I'll also give, also agree. I would argue, Councilor Moe, that I think both will learn a lot. Planning Commission will teach you a lot. But I think that Walter would be my pick for Planning Commission, and I would encourage Wendy for CDAC.
okay, and how do we feel about the two-term thing? Remember, we always have the option of just asking the staff to flip a coin. It could be dice, it could be rock, paper, scissors. Use the game of your choice.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Sandy. The next item is updates to the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission intergovernmental agreements, or IGAs, with Matt Stouter. I was just stalling long enough for Matt to walk up.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Matt Stouter. I'm the Environmental Services Director for Springfield. I also serve as the Executive Director for the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I have two foundational agreements to discuss with you regarding the MWMC. I'll try to be brief. The first is the intergovernmental agreement, and the second is the operations and maintenance agreement, which outlines how the two cities perform maintenance responsibilities and operational responsibilities for the MWMC. Both agreements are in need of update. The IGA was last updated comprehensively in 2005. The operations and maintenance agreement in 2001. MWMC's legal counsel worked closely with the City of Springfield Legal Counsel and the City of Eugene Legal Counsel on these updates, and the County Council was also conferred on the IGA. The county is party to the IGA, as are the two cities, and the county is not party to the OMA. The proposed amendments to the IGA are mostly housekeeping in nature. At a high level, they include updating recitals, removing historical references that are no longer needed or used, updating definitions, using consistent terms throughout the IGA, adding a section for the MWMC board to make a recommendation to the governing bodies if expansion area is considered. And I'll make two notes here. One, MWMC, we're changing the name to the MWMC board. It's currently called the MWMC Commission, which is redundant, and Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. Now it's going to be called the MWMC board when referred to as whole. And the second piece is that the MWMC, it's been recognized from the city attorneys and from the cities and from staff that if an expansion to the service area were to occur and were to be brought forward to the cities to evaluate, that they would value and hopefully want to see MWMC's opinion on whether or not, to what extent it would impact our infrastructure. So that recommendation has been added. I will also note that this IGA has zero to do with any sort of expansion. If you get into the details and you have questions, our service area is defined within the IGA. It's the service area within the two cities and any hauled waste in the form of septage that comes from outside the city. So this has been in the works for probably 3 years. There are conversations that are ongoing externally regarding other communities. That's totally separate. This is a strictly mostly housekeeping update.
Matt, could you just clarify, those other communities are scheduled to
two of those folks are scheduled to come in January on the 5th.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay. We're changing or reducing the quorum requirement to a simple majority, which is consistent with almost every agency throughout the state. That'd be 4 as long as each of our representative jurisdictions are present, as opposed to 5 right now, which sometimes creates challenges for the commission. Clarifying the language for when we would conduct a hearing right now is pretty ambiguous. Anybody could request a hearing on any topic in any city, unrelated to any business that's MWMC. So this would be related to MWMC's business. Updating language regarding obligations for termination, given that the cities are both parties to the MWMC's permit, and then updating our language for dispute resolution. Quickly with the OM&A, again, it's housekeeping edits, adding language for the parties to indemnify one another, updating termination and dispute language, considering updating my delegated authority for entering into contracts, which is very low. Right now it's 15,000. And so we're going to defer that to the board to set to be consistent with other executives around the region. Right now, if I have a $15,000 contract for personal services, I have to bring it to the board, and it's we have a loaded agendas, and it takes quite a bit of staff time, and it's not very efficient. And so, modernizing that, and then lastly, I'll say we're updating language with respect to public records requests and asset disposal. So, in terms of process, we're here tonight to just let you preview the agreements, ask any questions that you might have. We're scheduled to come back at the next council meeting with a resolution, hoping to put it on consent calendar after talking with legal counsel. It would be January 5th because that's the next meeting. And then we're scheduled to be out before City of Eugene and Lane County for their input and agreement in January as well. So with that, I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. And thank you for this. And I appreciate the comments about what the upcoming next steps are. I just have some curiosities about what the process has been so far. Since I'm not involved with MWMC, I don't know, like, was it like staff generated? Did it go through the board? Like, what's been the process to get it to this point?
So we haven't updated the agreement really in 20 years, and the OM&A has been longer than that. And so there's just things in there that mostly there's stuff in there that we're no longer doing, procedures we're no longer doing, and that don't make sense. So, for example, Eugene needs to submit their budget request to me by April 15th, and then we need to be taking that out. So that doesn't work anymore because of the timeline we're on with budgets. I have to have that information by the 1st of March, or we can't get a budget approved, given the multi-jurisdictional process. The contractual authority thing has been one where we spent a lot of time on very small contracts, and the commission has said, this is taking up business. Can we modernize that and maybe remove it, tie it to the statute, and have us set it by resolution so that it doesn't take an act of 3 governing bodies to update something every time we want to update it. There's several things like that. So mostly it's been ongoing things that we've been noting as housekeeping edits that have been over the last 20 years. It's like, okay, now it's time to move this forward.
And then just my follow-up question is, y'all brought this forward. Has it, and who's our MWMC person? Have you all seen it before it comes to us? That's kind of what I was like wanting to know, whether it came here first and then to you, or you first and then us.
Yeah, my apologies. We took this to our board last, like 2 or 3 weeks ago at our last meeting. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Councilor Stout.
To that point, I'll just have a comment and a question. The comment is simply that this is an excellent piece of work. I've enjoyed following it, and I really appreciate it because, as I think you mentioned, sometimes what was actually happening was not in alignment with what was actually written, because what was written just didn't make sense. And I think that I wouldn't be embarrassed at all about asking for the additional spending authority, especially because it's entirely reasonable within the other departments and the way that effective utilities run. My question, though, is do any of these changes improve getting payments from any of the either Springfield or Eugene, because those are the 2 involved groups, or is that really a separate discussion from this?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
When we had a budget hiccup, for example, because there was a late payment. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to improve that. That was an issue where EWEB, there's an issue between EWEB and the city of Eugene on remitting payment, and there's separating out of the fees, and it has to do with billing. I think that's nearly being resolved, but I don't think that's not going to be impacted by this. Yeah.
Councilor Weber. Very good. Anybody else? You have what you need, Matt?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item is the Housing Design Initiative Code and Plan Update, and we are running a little ahead of schedule, so feel free to take more time. Like, I feel like you guys have it covered. You'll catch us up.
Okay, did you want to start with anything? Or?
Yeah, I was just going to reintroduce the project. It's just the Housing Design Initiative. We came to you a week ago. We didn't get a chance to finish what was in that work session agenda. So we're going to jump right into the questions. I'm going to have Chelsea get to the one climate-friendly area question that she didn't get to, and then I'll jump into my portion.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm Chelsea Hartman again, a senior planner working on the Climate Friendly Areas project. So the only other question we have in this topic area is about whether council supports or has concerns with applying a 15-foot maximum building setback requirement for lots with frontage on an arterial in the CFA overlay. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. Attachment 4 in your packet includes some maps that show the lots that front on arterials in the CFA overlay for reference. Currently, a 10-foot maximum building setback applies in the downtown mixed-use area, which covers most of the downtown CFA west of 8th Street. But there's a lack of clarity between this standard and the downtown exception area having no setback standard, which basically covers the same area. So right now there's currently a discrepancy in the code of whether a maximum building setback applies or not. But while we're bringing this question forward is part of Senate Bill 1537 allows temporary flexibility on certain land use regulations for qualifying residential development. So you might have heard of this as mandatory adjustments. Part of this includes allowances for adjustments that mixed-use buildings could become fully residential if the building is set back 20 feet or more from the street, regardless of our local requirements for ground floor commercial. So due to this, staff are proposing revising the code standard to be a 15-foot maximum building setback that applies to the lots with frontage on arterials in the CFA overlay. And the intent is to maximize our economic uses on corridors that provide the most exposure for these buildings, and requiring these buildings to be closer to the street. This would help maintain our employment land supply. So I'll turn it over to the mayor and council for your discussion, and just noting the TAC did discuss this question, and their general feedback was broad support for removing the maximum building setback requirement.
Councilor Blackwell.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this clearly. So 15-foot setback, 15 foot would be the maximum they could be to the street, but they can be further back, or that's the furthest they could be That's the from the furthest they street. could So be it's back. really forcing buildings to be closer to the street on our arterials. okay. Yeah, it gets
That's-
confusing.
That's what I wanted to make sure that I was understanding that correctly, because that's just putting another one of those barriers to developers that makes me a little nervous, but let me think that through.
All right. Anybody else? Councilor Buck.
So, I think I've had the benefit of hearing this before, possibly. So as I also understand, you mentioned it, if we leave it open-ended as it is now, we also leave it open to, some of those spaces that we'd like to maintain as mixed use could become fully residential. And so we kind of leave the door open for that. And so what this maximum setback of 15 feet does is, well, Councilor Blackwell, you're absolutely correct. It could create a barrier, but it also creates a limitation to say, if we want mixed use here, this protects that versus a developer saying, well, we're going to do a 20-foot or 25-foot setback, and now it's going to be residential only. And that's that, and there's not much that can be done there. So the maximum does protect the mixed use piece of it. And so it's kind of one of those, where do you lean on it? So I just wanted to point out that's one of the key takeaways that I have of this. And the real purpose of putting that is we want to protect that retail space, and that's really what the goal here is.
Anybody else? So under the state law, if you're further than 20 feet back, it could be 100% residential building.
Yes, that's correct.
And is that a temporary adjustment, or is that for all time?
It's temporary, so this is in place until January 2nd, 2032. So any development between now and then could become fully residential. Yeah.
I don't know. That feels both temporary and permanent all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
I think, and I think I'm fine with pulling it. Right? Like, if you think about the climate friendly area, we've got a lot of residences to fit in there, and when you think about our commercial market right now, I'm not sure I see a clear line between us, a regulation like that, and sort of protecting commercial land. I think letting people kind of adjust the line is going to help, just to help people think through it in a more clear way, right? I think the risk with mixed use right now that we have is very possible that we could be overbuilt in commercial pretty easily. And just giving a little bit more flexibility always seems like it helps. Okay, Councilor Rodley.
So I'm just so are you saying that you're in favor of the 15 feet, or you're in favor of the not?
In favor of no regulation. The regulation, and just saying that let people design what they think is going to work.
That's why I was like, I'm trying to figure out where everybody is. And I really appreciated Counselor Buck sort of sharing that, because I also am like, the mixed use, as we had somebody came and reported a while back, it might have been as part of we moved this project, and the barriers that mixed use has. So I think I'm also in favor of just pulling that and not having the regulation in those areas. See what happens.
That's Blackwell.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have an abundance of commercial, like our commercial land banking is not at risk at this point in time.
Right, not totally at risk. There are maybe like one large property downtown that's in our employment land supply that could become fully residential, but it's near Booth Kelly, so I'm not sure how realistic that would be for housing anyways. So I think it's okay.
And I'm just going to note, we have a couple of folks coming in for what looks like could be the library, the payroll tax hearing. That's at least 30 minutes away. All right. Councilor Buck.
I guess I should have clarified that while I definitely see the intent of this, and I feel like it's I definitely appreciate where staff is going with this, trying to kind of protect that so that, you know, this is kind of a state regulation kind of thing, and we wanted to kind of be able to direct it. I also feel like, the same token, developers have a history in Springfield of doing a lot of things that make sense for the community, and I think we'll continue to see that. I think that this might be an opportunity to kind of trust them with projects and say, hey, you know, let's talk about projects that make sense. And I think that we'll get that collaboration, especially with the reputation that Springfield currently enjoys with our developers, as opposed to other areas. So I probably would fall into the, I like it, but we probably don't need it. But I appreciate like the thought process and why you guys put that in place. You guys wanted to kind of direct where we wanted this to go and protect that. And I very much appreciate that.
Do you have enough direction here?
Yeah.
I don't see any more hands coming up. Okay, I think we're ready for the next set of questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Chelsea. Okay, now we're going to go on to the commercial districts, which I'm sure you're excited to talk about. A little pivot. So next we're kind of going to give a little bit of background, and then we're going to jump into those policy questions. So the first is, again, why we're proposing some multi-unit standalone housing developments in certain locations. We acknowledge that housing opportunities need to be balanced with the policies that we have in place to preserve our land supply for employment uses. This goes into the question that was stated earlier by council about our commercial industrial buildable lands inventory, which we have to have per the state, that 20-year supply of commercial and industrial land. We found that we have a surplus of properties under an acre. So that's why kind of the emphasis is on those commercial lands under an acre. We found that busier high traffic streets, especially those arterials, are more viable locations for commercial uses because of visibility. But then we could have housing on the ground floor to kind of maintain that commercial emphasis with, you know, housing back behind it on some of those local or collector streets where the emphasis isn't on a commercial or industrial use right along that major arterial main street frontage. And again, that goes into how housing is more livable and attractive, generally behind or above a commercial use, as opposed to on the ground floor of an arterial street. So I do want to emphasize this graphic. This is pointing out where we would allow those multi-unit housing as a standalone use on Main Street. So standalone would mean there's no other use with it. It's just multi-unit housing. This again would be on properties under an acre that front on a local or collector street. Last week, we also talked about where they'd be allowed as a mixed use. That would be on Main Street, where we would allow it above or behind. But the graphic here is just where you would allow standalone multi-unit housing. Again, in our mixed use area in East Main, in the refinement plan, we allow multi-unit housing, mixed use. It's kind of choose your own adventure in that area because it is already a mixed use area per that East Main refinement plan. So how we're hoping to encourage some high density housing in our commercial districts, we have a couple of proposals. The first is to apply a minimum density standard in all districts, basically where we would allow housing. Right now, we don't have that standard. If you're developing mixed use housing, it would be 15 units per net acre. And then if you're proposing just standalone, that residential multi-unit housing, it'd be 20 units per net acre. We also are proposing to increase the maximum height in the neighborhood commercial district to allow 4-story buildings to support housing above commercial uses. Again, we're going to allow mixed use in our neighborhood commercial district. We're also proposing to modify the height step down standard when a site is adjacent to residential districts. So right now we have a 50-foot step back, and the proposal will be to 25 feet. This enables that more buildable area without, limiting the amount of development that can happen. And then we're also proposing to increase the maximum lot coverage in the neighborhood commercial district from 20 feet to higher.
Could you give us an example of a mixed-use building that is 15 units per acre?
Oh. I am not sure if the Rivet building hit that density. I am not sure, but that would be probably my best guess.
Do you think it's just above, or do you think it's below if it's in like?
I think it might be slightly below. Yeah.
All right, we're tagging in Sandy. She's giving it.
Sandy?
Yeah. You want to go with your question?
You can let Sandy answer, and then I have another question.
Yeah, I don't know what the density is, but it would be higher than 15 units per acre because that's a fairly small lot. And so I've looked at the density before, and I believe it's higher than that.
And could you give an example of a residential building that is operating at 20 units per acre? I'm going to ask all the good questions in the last meeting before break.
Yeah, I mean, the apartments around the Q Street area, the new ones around there are in the medium density districts. And so those are in like the 14 to 21 dwelling units per acre.
So really what we're thinking about is like, when we're talking about how this will be allowed, would be like Rivet building type buildings to apartments on Q Street type buildings.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you. So one of my challenges around the minimum density being units per acre is that it doesn't really take into account like how many bedrooms that are in these units. And so when I think about increasing density, I'm probably thinking about not like the rules are in terms of how do we get more people housed. And I know that working on some of the projects we have, and I've appreciated Councilor Blackwell bringing up that some of them, like we went with fewer units to get more bedrooms because that's how families stay housed. So one of my concerns about this, and I probably won't be able to like be the boss of it, is that when we, the 20 units per net acre as a minimum standard could mean that we get like an overabundance of like studios or smaller apartments that then we don't have the breadth of the market. And again, it's an opinion, it's a concern that we end up with a whole bunch of smaller things and not enough for like families to live in those areas. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion here?
I can acknowledge that something that we brought up at the previous work session was about the minimum lot size. And that can be hard to meet, even with middle housing, even with single unit dwellings for this proposal for a mixed use development or in the commercial district. So it could be more challenging on those smaller lots, absolutely, than we could see on the bigger lots.
And maybe this isn't a place that we can settle it tonight, but like, is there another metric that we can use, that would, help get to that question of, I don't know if it's bedrooms per acre, right? But to sort of balance that sense of like in the Rivet building, they're really great if you're, either dual income, no kids, or, it's still in your single life, but, giving people credit if they're adding bedrooms.
Absolutely. We can look into that.
All right.
Okay.
Nope.
I just wanted to echo my support for Councilor Rodley's position on that one. I think it was very thoughtful, and I would fully agree with that.
Okay. So the first question is about, again, supporting that middle housing in the community commercial district on Main Street and South A Street. The only residential uses that would be allowed in this case are mixed use development with residential uses on Main Street or South A, or multi-unit housing on local or collector streets. One TAC member wondered if we would allow lot consolidation. We would allow lot consolidation, but we would not allow lot division. So in that case, we would not want you to take a very large parcel and chop it up into make smaller parcels so that you'd be under that 1 acre. And then the TAC did not reach consensus on whether or not to allow middle housing in the community commercial district. So again, I just kind of mentioned it can be a little hard to hit these density standards if you have really small lots. So I would ask the council to give me some feedback on if they would still like the developers to have the option to try for middle housing, or if they would want the emphasis to be on multi-unit housing.
Councilor Buck.
Can you help me out with your general sense of the lot inventory that we have? Do we tend to have more of the smaller lots, or do we tend to have the larger lots that would lean towards development you were talking about?
Yeah, I would say that most of the lots are smaller. I think attachment 5 was a great visual, so you could see all the lots that would be under 1 acre and would be developable on the different segments of Main Street, versus we have very few lots that are over 1 acre on Main Street that aren't developed or are buildable. So I would say the majority of them are smaller and going to be under 1 acre.
Anybody else? I do think being really clear with folks that we do not want to allow them to buy big lots and sort of take, and sort of strip them down to smaller lots. That's a really important distinction. We're trying to really weave this conversation between the ability to add housing and the ability to sort of balance economic lands, right? So because we're opening it up on one end, we really have to protect those employment lands. And okay, so I don't know that we answered your question yet. Do you support not allowing middle housing in?
So again, we were talking about that density, right? If in this instance, we would be more for that higher density. We'd be emphasizing, we want you to build more units versus middle housing. We're thinking about those townhouses, duplexes, triplexes. Sometimes, the conversation that I've had internally with staff is that this is prime real estate land. Again, most of the time it's been a commercial or industrial use. So then if we allow residential, is that the highest and best use of those properties to just get a couple of units? Or do we want to emphasize the highest and best use of these properties is higher density housing?
People, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Rutherford.
I'm going to be so messy on this because I think this totally gets to the point of what I was trying to say earlier. And I think that, part of our job is to balance that highest and best use with Springfield and how people live and work here. And so that's where I wrestle with it a lot, is it'd be really easy to just say, let's go highest and best use. Let's plug a bunch of studios and 1-bedrooms in downtown. But I see that as really changing the way maybe our downtown is being experienced. And I'm for some of that. I also could see some sweet cottage clusters that a family could live in forever, or seniors could live in. Or, so that's where I'm like, and I know we have to get to a decision, and I'm just like sitting here, but that's where I'm thinking highest and best use. Yes. Also livability and how people experience Springfield and want to be here.
Councilor Blackwell.
I agree with that. And I really support the variety of housing. I rather see variety and have developers will tend to choose highest and best use just because that's affects their bottom line. And so I don't really believe in putting that restriction. I want to see what develops. And I just think that having a variety of homes and sizes and bedroom counts is important, and not just end up with high rises that are studio apartments.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor Weber.
I agree. I think that if we're making a lot of changes here, and it kind of feels like we need to stop and think about how much change we want to make right away. Like maybe test some of it in these other areas, see what what plays out, but kind of leave the other ones alone for now. That's kind of where I'm at.
Counselor Book.
I think that I'm in agreement with my colleagues here. I guess I will say that I'm in favor of allowing the middle housing because I think that the lots that we're talking about aren't the majority of lots based on lot sizes and lot inventory. And so I think that if we said, nope, we're going to not allow any middle housing in that section, I think it limits us in a way that we don't need to limit ourselves, just because I think those smaller lots are going to tend to gravitate towards smaller units, but the lots that would allow for the opportunity to put some middle housing in there, I think we need to leave that so that that opportunity is there. I think what we have is going to determine what goes in there, and I think we just need to let it be.
All right. What is the risk if we allow middle housing in there and we don't try to drive density, that we get to a point that we consume all of our residential land and then we can't go back and ask the state for more residential land because we have to get to a certain amount of house, like the physics of this thing have to work. And I don't know if this is a legal question or not, but if we just sort of, our instincts to let people build, right? But we could not hit our unit coverage that we're actually looking for. Like, what happens at that point?
I don't know if Chelsea wants to cover this one. She is the one who is addressing our housing capacity analysis.
Yeah, I think it is tough having some of these earlier pieces of conversations about housing without getting into our full housing capacity analysis that we will be doing soon. And as part of that, we will have to look at types of housing we're planning for, the characteristics, and then locations will be a big part. So it's the number of units and then where are we going to put them? That'll be our whole big community conversation that we're having in 2026. So I think this could be a piece of that puzzle. We're probably, based on how the rules are written with the state, looking at a UGB expansion regardless of how much we increase density, because we can only do that to a certain extent within the rules. And then we need to look at adding more land to our urban growth boundary. So I think, don't know exactly, but I think we're just in a tough place with the way the rules are written now.
Well, don't worry. The short session is going to be here soon, and I'm sure we'll get a whole new set of rules that will change what's happening. And B, do you have any kind of thoughts here about like how do we think about that long-term risk?
No, I think I would just second what Chelsea was talking about. Until you really know what that inventory looks like, it would be hard to know what you could do with the state.
Yep. Okay. So I think then we're back to this question of, right, being like we continue to want to be focused on as much, flexibility and development as possible, knowing that, finding something that financially pencils is really an important task. And then we'll deal with these kind of longer term issues as we get to them.
Great. Thank you. Okay. I'm kind of going to skip the height question about neighborhood commercial, unless there's a question about that, just saying that we're going from a 20-foot tall buildings to 50-foot tall, which would be about a 4-story mixed use building. And we also increase the lot coverage from 35% to 60%. Just wanted to cover that real quick. The other thing that we are proposing is that step down standard. So again, this would, to describe it, we currently require that the maximum height of buildings step down to no more than 35 to 50 feet on the portion of a property that is within 50 feet of an adjacent R1 or R2 district. So you can kind of see the visual on the left. That is what we have currently. And then on the right, you can see what it would be. So 50 feet within that, that's where we would reduce the height. And it's going from 50 feet down to 25 feet. So that's the proposal. It just kind of shows a little bit more emphasizing that you could build more units on those upper floors, construct buildings without a step down by moving the entire building. Again, some developers would say, I'm going to move the entire building so that I'm not within that 50-foot or 25-foot setback because I know I'm going to reduce the amount of units that I have. So on to this question, in the commercial districts, do you support this allowance to reduce the height from 50 feet to 25 feet from the property line? And this would apply, I'm sorry, to the community commercial, the mixed use residential, the mixed use commercial, the mixed use employment, and the Booth Kelly mixed use districts.
I think you hit all the zoning types in there. Go ahead, Councilor Buck.
All right. So, you got some feedback from Planning Commission on this. Can you share what the Planning Commission gave you guys?
They were in favor of this.
I think I'm in favor. I think I'm seeing some head nods here. I think we're in favor of this.
Awesome. I'm going to move ahead to the next question then. So this question is a little bit more meaty. This is about mixed use buildings with residential uses or multi-unit housing when they abut an industrial district. So you may remember last week I came to you kind of about where we could put some compatibility standards in here. In this instance, we're looking at additional setbacks, some screening and landscaping standards, and some reduced height standards. And all of this was described in the council briefing memo, but I'll try to touch on them real quick. Basically, when a mixed use building with a residential use or multi-unit housing would abut a light, medium industrial, heavy industrial, or special heavy industrial district, we would propose an interior side and rear yard setback of 20 feet, and that the setbacks could be reduced by 50% if you installed a masonry wall or decorative wall. When a mixed-use building with residential uses or multi-unit housing abuts an industrial district, the building height could be reduced to 50 feet. And then again, I noted in the council briefing memo that there were several refinement plan policies where they tried to address compatibility. That includes downtown, East Main, Gateway, and Mid Springfield. So some of those areas that we were in particular concerned about residential in close proximity to industrial. So based on that information, I'm looking for council's guidance on some ways we could potentially address this. We could rely on the proposed code changes. Again, that reduced height, those additional setbacks between industrial and a residential use. We could increase the required setbacks and buffering. Again, I said 20 feet when you're on the side or the rear. We would have a 20-foot setback. We could continue to explore some options for compatibility. I'm hoping to come back to council at the first week in February to discuss more about those compatibility issues. So if you can't make a decision tonight, that's okay. And then we could also just consider not allowing residential uses in proximity to industrial.
I think I'm comfortable with the mason, wall as a way to reduce setbacks. Councilor Blackwell.
Yeah, on here, I am fine with A. So the ones that you suggested, I'm comfortable with. Again, that kind of reduces adding more and more layers to development in that area. So I support option A.
Councilor Stout.
I think there's a conversation that we also have to have, and I'm not, forgive me, this is a bit sloppy. For example, in areas that were classically like just vacant land, and then they built heavily in residential, and then there's industrial traffic. There's been industrial traffic for 40 years. All of a sudden, then there's a complaint from the neighbors that they're concerned about there's their health or otherwise. I share these concerns, but I also share the fact that, but the industry's been there for 40 years, and that's what's creating the jobs in the community. So I think there's a careful balance there, and I think even outside of the long list of uses where we require a certain permitting, I think there's an additional question. I mean, my car every day, I work right next to a big lumber mill. It's covered with sawdust. It's just covered, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not complaining about it, but it's just like, is that the right thing for our homeowners right next to it? So I hate to say it, but it's like, there's a certain amount of risk that the developer of residential property takes on there. And I don't quite know how we're going to handle that reasonably without, frankly, just having a lot of upset citizens. All of a sudden they buy a new house that's developed next to an industrial property. So I just wanted to raise that as my concern.
Councilor Weber.
Yeah, I have some concerns around environmental impact too, being that close to industrial use. I personally would like to see us explore C a little bit, just see what other options are out there.
Okay.
Anybody else? I think the conversation needs to continue. The question that I really have with a setback and maybe additional information helps me here is I keep coming back to the sound piece of it, right? And maybe to Councilor Stout's point, the air quality issue is an issue. Like the water quality overlay is pretty well governed by a different piece. But how do we know? Like I get that a mason wall a good example of a sound barrier, but how do we know that the setback at 20 feet is enough to address that sound concern? And again, like the part of the community that, I've represented for a long time, really, this was a huge issue, and it was all related to sound. And the way I'm thinking about those homes is they were more than 20 feet away from where the sound emission was. And I think Counselor Stout has a really good point, and I know we're going to kind of give you direction and let you sort of research it and come back to it, is that when you have, when we let the city develop, right, we'll see a point when, users on the industrial side had been there for a very long time, but when residential development happens and then it's sold 2 or 3 times, we will have our constituents come to us, and really that relationship in that zone is going to flip from being pointed towards the commercial development towards the residential development, because that's the most impactful thing that people see in their lives, and I don't know how to balance that yet. So I think sound is a big question for me. I think it's the air quality question, and maybe the answer is is sort of El Rapa, and then more broadly this question about how do we diffuse disputes?
Excellent. Great questions. And I hope to bring it back to you in the first week in February to discuss it some more.
Do you have one other quick question you can squeeze in? And I'm sure folks coming in really are going to enjoy going. Let's see if we can slip one more in.
I would really like to talk about the East Main Refinement Plan, because I think this one is quite important. You may remember that I talked about this area in particular is a mixed use area already. The issue is that we have some standards that are not very clear. We say that the development could meet either the R2 or R3 standards, which can be kind of confusing to a developer when they're looking at what that looks like. So I just want to talk about kind of what our options could be here. We could clarify that the applicant can decide between the R2 or R3 standards. This isn't really a change from what we have right now. So that's a pro. It would continue as it is, but it still makes it complex. It doesn't really address the complexity issue of how do you apply under those standards. Option B would apply the same development standards that I've been talking about, those mixed use standards in the community commercial district. This would allow for higher densities than the R2 or R3 district standards right now, but it may not be consistent with the standards that are there in the refinement plan, which are for lower densities. And then option C, we could apply the mixed use commercial district standards. Again, a pro is that this simplifies the plan designation. It's already a mixed use district, but a con is that it could not be consistent with the original standards. And then you're going to have to apply the design standards of the mixed use commercial district to this area in particular. So if council has any thoughts, this would really help me and my team out to try to decide how can we balance these needs in this area.
So before we get into that, I know we got a lot of folks that are looking to testify for a public hearing that we've got next. If you did not see it, there are cards over on that table. So if you want to testify, you need to fill out a card, give it to Allison, and then when we'll get to the hearing here shortly. Anybody want to jump in? Go ahead, Councilor Buck.
So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about some of the feedback you've gotten from developers, because in that section in particular, on that north side of Main Street, there's a lot of opportunity for development that's not happening. Less so on the south side, but I'm curious as to what feedback you're getting that what do developers want to put there that they're currently feeling like the code doesn't allow, or they're shying away, because there's got to be some barrier for why that's not being developed.
I would imagine one thing was the density. So Cherry Springs was just developed right off of 48th. And actually that area was developed with lower densities in mind. And they actually rezoned it to mixed use residential so that they could meet the lower density standards in the mixed use residential district, as opposed to trying to meet the density standards in the R2 or R3 district, which is what we have right now. So I would say when it comes to housing, density is a real concern in that area if it can be met. I think we have a lot of different businesses in that area, a lot of mix of uses. We're seeing so much new development when it comes to commercial in that area. So I think allowing, again, that continued mix of uses, but allowing the flexibility for the developer to choose is going to be really important. Applying density standards to the mixed use commercial district could be a barrier to development. Again, they could be a little stricter than what we currently could allow.
Could you flip to the next slide so we can look at the pros and cons again? Thank you. Councilor Rodley.
You mentioned something that's not a part of this. You said clarify, it says here, clarify that the applicant can decide R2 or R3. That doesn't include R1, right? So, I mean, I totally understand I want to keep working on the complexity issues, but I don't want to try to tackle the complexity by creating extra barriers, right? And I think I'm hearing that we're all on board. Like, we want to we don't want to come out of here making it harder just to make it easier. We want to make it easier to make it easier. So I think I'm kind of sticking with A and hoping we can continue to kind of, if there are some specific things that we can address that developers are saying this is getting in the way or we don't understand, maybe we could tackle that, but I'd rather not just lay on a bunch of stuff that's going to make it harder.
Anyone else? Councilor Blackwell.
Just real quick to Councilor Rodley's point, does that mean like option B kind of takes that from, what you have set now, but allowing, it allows for the higher densities. So that solve that density problem that you were just speaking about earlier. That one in particular kind of is kind of in line with what we have now, although it allows that density to increase.
Yeah, if you did apply B, it would allow those higher densities, yes. But yeah, it could just create some more restrictions on basically the type of development, as opposed to right now, it's pretty much, again, like choose your own adventure. You could be completely commercial, you could be completely residential, you could be a mixed use building. If you go with option B, it's a little bit more, you're pretty much going to be a mixed use building.
Anybody else? All right. Do you have enough direction on this one?
I believe so. Again, I'm hoping to come back to you guys the first week in February to address some of those compatibility issues that we didn't get to tonight. So I think it'll be a really great discussion, and thank you so much.
You are teeing up quite a bit of really complicated housing questions. So thanks for your patience with us.
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, we do have seats up front. And then if you're Springfield City staff, there's some staff chairs that are over here that you could potentially sit into. We are adjourned with the work session. We will probably start the regular session, special regular session in a couple of minutes, just long enough to get organized. I'm going to call the special regular session to order with a roll call.
Van Gordon.
Here.
Councilor Weber.
Here.
Councilor Moe.
Here.
Councilor Rodley.
Here.
Councilor Blackwell.
Here.
Councilor Buck.
Present.
And Councilor Stout.
Here.
All right. Excellent. Could you call the first item, please?
Yes, we have one item tonight. It is the public hearing payroll tax resolution. Nathan Bell is here for this item.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Nathan Bell, Finance Director. The item in front of you this evening is a request to conduct a public hearing and to adopt, not adopt, a resolution directing staff to develop a payroll tax for council review and deliberation. And one of the things I want to do is highlight this resolution does not implement a payroll tax, nor does it contain any of the details of what that payroll tax would look like. Rather, it formalizes kind of what led up to and then your decision to direct staff to begin the process of implementing a payroll tax. If this passes this evening, we'll begin the process of preparing those materials to bring back to you in a work session, probably in late January or early February. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you for any questions.
All right. Questions before we open the hearing? Okay. So I've got a couple questions. So if, sorry, let me check my other side here. Anybody got direct questions? So right now, when we think about what we're doing here, the only thing the resolution says is city manager, like after all this work, we want you to pursue implementing a payroll tax. Is that correct? So it doesn't specify the rate.
It doesn't specify any details. That will begin after this resolution is passed, and that'll come back to you in a work session where you'll have an opportunity to shape those details.
Okay. So I think the other question that I have is if you think about the timeline from implementation, could you talk more from the moment we say go tonight to potentially when that would be implemented? How long are we talking at that point?
If you were to say go this evening, best case scenario is to have something that could potentially be in place and active beginning January 1st of 2027.
So I know there's kind of two portions to this, right? The first portion is we're passing the ordinance itself, and then there's a portion where you're working with the business community and the payroll folks to potentially implement that.
Yes.
So our work would go through the first couple of quarters of next year, right?
Yes, it would.
Okay, and then you would have to hit a January 1st, 2027 date. You would have to have the next 6 months to really do the staff work with the business community, the payroll folks, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Mayor, could I add just
Sure.
one more procedural point? Also, when the council considers the payroll tax, it'll be new municipal code and an ordinance, and there's more opportunity for public involvement at that point as well, based on the information that you've given in the work session and in the regular sessions.
Okay. So we're going to get into this. I know there's big questions about the library, so please be patient with us as we kind of work through this. So by plan tonight, we're not scheduled really to talk about the library. And I'm going to switch over to Neil, who's pinch hitting for the city manager here in a second.
All right.
So Neil, I know people are concerned here about library reductions. Could you talk maybe a little bit about the process for how the community would evaluate those library reductions?
Yeah, so as the council's been very clear, the budget process, which starts in May, is where the budget decisions will be made. So as you mentioned, there's no decision tonight on any library cuts as part of this discussion. But as the council works towards their May discussions of the budget, those 3 nights where the public has access to those discussions, that's when those decisions will likely be made.
Okay. So I got a thing to read for the public hearing. I've got names to call up. We'll get through a plan. I just kind of want to talk through this piece so that if it helps you formulate your thoughts. The way that the budget process really works is the city manager proposes a budget, then we have a budget committee hearing, which is the public outreach portion of that, and then the city council usually adopts it potentially in, I don't know, usually it's late June. We always think it's going to be faster than it actually is, but usually it's potentially late June. So as we work through this tonight, I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions. We're going to take all your input. We're going to talk about specifically some issues around the payroll tax. You may hear us come back and talk about library funding, but a lot of this is really going to, really may be around, hey, this question is really a question that happens through a different instrument around the budget committee, which is designed for the community to evaluate the options and the options and the levels of service that we're getting for our tax dollars. Okay, anybody else have other questions? Mary Bridget, did I get that right?
That's correct.
Oh, I passed. Go ahead, Councilor Stout.
Mr. Mayor, may I propose a point of order? Given the sheer number of amount of testimony that we have tonight, I would move that we limit to public testimony to 2 minutes per speaker as opposed to our traditional 3.
Is there a second to that? Do you want to put it in a form?
Second that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to discuss this. So really, was that a question or was that a motion?
I would ask the parliamentarian what the appropriate one. Technically, it was a motion.
Yeah, I think you have on the floor now a motion and a second to limit public testimony to 2 minutes per person for this evening.
Mr. Blackwell.
I guess I have a question. How many cards do we have?
counting.
I know there's a lot of people in here, but they might just want to.
I've got 15 cards. Do we have any hands online?
No hands as of yet.
Okay, so maybe usually we pick up another couple online as we go. We do have a scheduled next meeting, I believe, that is supposed to start at 7:15.
7.
Oh, see, there you go. Well,
That's what I was getting.
please be patient. We're going to work through all this stuff. We'll get you guys in a second. All right. So any thoughts, discussions, opinions, Councilor Buck?
I think that one of the things that's really helpful is hearing what the community has to say, and 15 cards seems manageable at 3 minutes.
I withdraw my motion.
Withdraw my second.
All right. So let me offer an alternative about what we could do here that we've used successfully is we could just simply discuss whether or not and do a little bit of a check-in in say 30 minutes and see how we're doing. Is that something people are, and that is something, okay. We're back to you guys. So right now, here's what's going on. We have 15 cards. We're probably going to pick up a couple of people online as we go. So what we're going to do is because we have another item, we're just going to kind of manage the time and check in about where we're at in the first probably 30 minutes. Before I open the hearing, Nate, I think we're good. So I'm going to read some instructions, and then what we're going to do is we've got 2 seats up here. I'm going to call people up 2 at a time, and then you'll have your 3 minutes. So we'll go one person, the next person, the next set of people. All right. Before we begin the public hearing this evening, I'd like to take a moment to outline the protocol and expectations for public comment. First, I want to thank everyone for being here and for taking the time to participate. Public input is an essential part of our decision-making process, and we value the opportunity to hear from the community tonight. Tonight's public comment period is specifically dedicated to the topic of the public hearing, which is the payroll tax resolution. I ask that the remarks stay focused on the item before the council. This helps us make a clear and productive record to ensure that everyone's time is respected. If you wish to speak and have not signed up yet, please complete a request to speak card and hand it to the city recorder. Speakers will be called in the order which they signed up. Once your name is called, please come forward to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then begin your comments. Also, please state the location of the city. You can state your address, you can state your ward, you can state the general description. We sort of just keep track of what part of the city you're from, or if you're from a different part of the community. If you each speaker will have, or if you are online, please raise your virtual hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes of time to address the council. We ask that all speakers and audience members maintain a respectful conduct throughout the hearing. This means no interruptions, no applause, no verbal reactions, positive or negative, while others are speaking. This ensures a safe and fair space for every participant. Offensive language or disruptive behavior is not permitted. With these guidelines in place, we look forward to hearing from each one of you. And I'm going to open the public hearing. The first 2 folks that I have Callie Ackland and Ava Cronin. Second here, we have all right, I think we're ready.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Callie Ackland. I'm a resident of Ward 4, and I'm here today as a community organizer with Save Springfield Library to talk about the payroll tax. Save Springfield Library is working to inform Springfield residents about the proposed library budget cuts and to secure long-term funding for the library. The Save Springfield Library Group is incredibly grateful to have the support of the League of Women Voters of Lane County History Museum, Junction City Historic Society, Lane Library League, Springfield Eugene Tenant Association, United Academics of UO, the Oregon Chapter of National Writers Union,
and Kitty Piercy, former Eugene mayor and state representative, all of whom have written letters to City Council asking that you take the necessary steps to maintain current library funding. Each letter is available on our website, safespringfieldlibrary.org, and I will provide copies to the city recorder. I understand how delicate and difficult this budget situation is. I understand that the city cannot operate in the red, so the budget has to be balanced somehow. The payroll tax is a solution right in front of you. When you vote on the payroll tax rate early next year, I hope we can count on you to set a rate that fully funds the library. Many of your constituents are begging you to not cut the library's budget, and I hope you'll choose to listen to the people instead of corporate interests. A minuscule increase to the proposed payroll tax rate does not add any additional administrative burden to businesses. The Chamber of Commerce's suggestion for the library to explore fresh, innovative operating models simply won't be possible if the library is struggling to operate with below the minimum necessary staffing for the population it serves. We are asking you to please support the people and their library. Please do not bow down to corporate demands. Please set a payroll tax rate that fully funds the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eva Cronin. I actually live in Eugene, but I have worked in Springfield as a staff person with Head Start of Lane County. And during that time, I coordinated with the librarians here. I always thought the library here was much more friendly to kids than the Eugene Library, I have to say. And the librarian was so helpful and wanted to do a program which would help bring in Head Start families. And if you don't know about Head Start, we serve low-income families. And low-income families are typically working 1 or 2 jobs, maybe even more. And if they were able to be here, this room would be packed with them. So I feel like I'm representing lots of families that would love the library. I loved the library when I was a kid. It is certainly a part of who I am, and I think I came out to be a pretty good human. Democracies require libraries, and to think that we would even consider cutting funding to libraries is an abomination to me. I didn't say that right. I just can't believe it. Books are so important, and it's important for people of all ages. And there's so many services that the libraries offer. And I think they should be tripled and quadrupled in services to reach everybody in your city and in your county. So I'm here to say yes to a payroll tax that will fully fund the library. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next 2 cards I have are Jessica Winans and Elliot Harwell.
Hello, councilpersons. I am Jessica Winans, and I live in Ward 2. I'm here to speak in support of the Springfield Public Library and specifically in support of moving forward with the work on the payroll tax. This payroll tax is important to fund at a high enough rate so that the library can continue operating at its current service level. The increase needed is minimal, and it puts the payroll tax far below the payroll tax of neighboring Eugene. I think that not approving the payroll tax at a rate that funds our current services, including the library, is short-sighted. And I feel passionate about the role of the library in our community. I'm in a unique position to do that as I am responsible for a college library. And from that work, I see every day how libraries make an easy target because the work of librarians is not well understood. The resources and education that are provided are not always highly visible, and there's not always the important value of the library as a space for the public. I believe that there's some, in what we've seen so far coming out from the city and suggestions, that there's evidence of a lack of understanding of the importance of a library and how much it contributes to our community. I'm also here as a regular library user and the parent of a 10-year-old, very proud library card holder. I really am proud to live in Springfield. I've seen a lot of growth since we moved here in 2016. It feels like a different town to me. I don't want to live in a town that doesn't have a well-funded library. I don't want that to be where my kid grows up. And I think that we have a way in front of us where we can move forward with the payroll tax at a well-funded rate so that that doesn't have to be the possibility for my kid and the other kiddos in this room tonight. Thank you.
Elliot.
Hello, my name is Elliot Harwell. I live in Ward 3. I was recently appointed to the Springfield Budget Committee, but tonight I am speaking only on behalf of myself. Supporters of the library, myself included, have come out tonight to enforce because we recognize that the proposed payroll tax is the last best hope of funding our library fully. The mayor's fiscal task force also understood the critical importance of the payroll tax for our city's fiscal future. That's why it was convened. That's the work that they did. But the businesses that sat on the fiscal task force explicitly argued for a payroll tax level that would necessitate the city make cuts. Because, and I'm quoting here, one of those businessmen said that the city should also feel the pain. A great deal of the conversation around the payroll tax has been focused on listening to these business interests, and not small businesses, but on large corporations, regional and national. But the payroll tax is only paid half by businesses. The other half is drawn from the salaries of the men and women who live and work in Springfield. And those Springfieldians, who were not represented on this fiscal task force, are here tonight to represent themselves. And we are saying that we expect the payroll tax to fill the $500,000 hole in the library's budget. Increasing the payroll tax by 0.01% would result in the payroll projected tax revenue increase of $400,000, which is most of the way there. Choosing to accept the payroll tax at the proposed level is choosing to fire 3 librarians, close the library an extra day, and cut $89,000 from the books. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next two are Rebecca Fowler and Paul Baker.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Faleur. I live in Ward 1. I moved to Springfield about 2.5 years ago. I've never spoken at one of these things. I've never been to one of these things, but the library is important enough to me that I want to be here tonight. The library provided me a place that was safe when I first moved here, and it was really impactful in me choosing Springfield as a community that I was going to live in. And I have participated. I am a regular library user. I'm there almost every day. I really feel the weight of the library already not being open on Sundays, but to close the library another day with proposed $500,000 cuts, that just, it seems totally wild to me. So the library is a space that I've been able to build a lot of community, particularly around crafting and going to crafting activities, meeting my friends there to craft, and being able to grow community in this area. I fully support a payroll tax that fully funds the library at current levels or even higher, because our community needs this and truly benefits from having the library here. That's all I have to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Paul Baker, live on 3rd Street from Springfield. First of all, I'd like to compliment the city council on only spending 10 minutes on whether to reduce our speaking time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. Yeah. I want to talk not necessarily about increasing revenue, but how revenue is likely to decrease. Donald Trump and his stormtroopers are raiding cities all over the country, and I've got friends in Chicago and Portland, and they're saying it's causing significant economic difficulties. And I think it's counties that include Salem, Tualatin, some counties north and northwest, including ones right near Portland, have suggested to the state that they pass laws that prevent ICE from basically breaking the law. And I think the Springfield City Council should ask for those laws. I think the city of Springfield has about 60,000 people. From looking at census data, I think there's about 10 to 12,000 Hispanics and another 2,000 to 2,500 with dark skins, largely Asian. And I think a possible solution is to have the city, the school board, and the police work together to try to limit ICE damage. And the mayor said there was going to be a messaging system to let people know of weather emergencies and that kind of thing. That message system could also be used if ordinary people report where ICE is and it's transferred through the city's messaging system, that would help quite a bit. The schools, when I was an anti-Vietnam activist in high school, and much of the activism was among males who were going to be drafted. I was one of the last 300 people in the country drafted, and we did a real good job of creating a lot of anti-Vietnam sentiment. I think high school students in Springfield schools who are often citizens, but their parents and grandparents are not citizens, can be organized. They should organize themselves. The school board, the schools should support students to organize themselves. Thirdly, I think the police should track where if ICE people are staying in Gateway, they should develop sources at the different hotels to report where they're staying, allow activists to trace the cars, that type of thing. If we don't do something like this, we're going to lose a hell of a lot more people. We're going to lose a hell of a lot more potential payroll tax, and we're going to cause a lot of misery for people who don't need it. That's it.
Thank you. The next person is Rachel Holbrook and Michelle Tierney.
Hi, I'm Rachel Holbrook. I've been a resident of Springfield for about 9 years now. This is the longest I've ever lived in one place in my whole life. I live just between here and Pioneer Parkway. All three of my kids have been utilizing the library and our public schools and our roads and all of the things that I'm really proud of living in Springfield because of things like our library and our museum, the Wilders Theater, things like that, that I feel like we mostly do a very good job of providing these things for our community. I've talked to a lot of people who utilize the library during the ice storms when they had to come in because of the fires or because of the smoke, heat, ice storms and things. Like, it's such an essential part of our community. We can't defund this. This is something that, if anything, like was already said, the fact that it's not open 7 days a week, the fact that it, closes earlier, those are things I'd like to see services expanded, if anything. I want to say thank you to all of the organizers who made everybody aware of this happening and got everybody out here today. And I want to say thank you to everybody who made it here today, and also encourage everybody to keep showing up, not just for this, but, we need to keep track of all of the things that are happening in our town. And this is a big part of what democracy is. We vote for people, but then we need to show up and make sure that everything is continuing according to what the wishes of the people really are. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Council members, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking for myself as a citizen, but I do work at the Springfield Library. So I'm here to share a different perspective for what our library does for our community, not in statistics, but in human terms. So most people already understand that every day at the library, my job is to help people find information, access services, and navigate technology. But the most important work I do is something less visible. I treat people with dignity, respect, and genuine care. These points of connection matter more than most people realize. Every day, people come to the library carrying a lot: stress, fear, loneliness, frustration. Some are overwhelmed parents, some are teenagers looking for a safe space, some are seniors trying to stay connected, and some are neighbors who lived on the margins of society and who feel unseen. Over the past couple years in particular, there's been a steep increase in people from all walks of life who come in anxious or frazzled, and I take time to acknowledge their feelings, to slow things down, to reassure them that they're not alone and that we will figure things out together. These people range from everyday people to people experiencing extreme hardship. The assistance I provide isn't just about printing a document or finding a resource. It's about dignity, restoring a sense of calm, and reminding them of their own worth. The Springfield Library is one of the few places where people are treated with true and consistent kindness. It is my honor to serve, and it is my honor to look people in the eye, offer a warm welcome, often greeting them by their first name. I offer a human connection that many rarely experience elsewhere, much less through their local government. That connection, those small moments of empathy, have real impact. They help people feel grounded. They help them feel human. They help them feel valued and like they truly belong to this community. The Springfield Library does the quiet work of listening, caring, and showing the respect that keeps people tethered to hope and possibility. We constantly hear feedback that Springfield exemplifies welcome and exudes warmness. If we cut our library resources, we don't just lose books, programs, or computers. We lose those opportunities for human connection. We lose a place where people feel safe, seen, and supported. The library is an investment, one that pays dividends every single day in the well-being of Springfield residents. It supports mental health. It reduces isolation. It helps people face the challenges in their lives with a little more confidence and a lot more kindness. I can't fix the city's budget, but I can tell you this. The work that we do at the library strengthens and helps fix the fabric of our community. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our community.
Thank you. The next two people are Manuel Gonzalez and Carol Wiles. Could you hit the unmute button? It should go green. Perfect.
I see. Hey, good evening, y'all. My name is Manuel. I am a Springfield resident, been living in Springfield, Oregon for over 18 years now. I work, live, and grow, have grown here. I've used the library for a long time. I'm honestly disappointed that I have to be here and really saddened that very basic things have to be spelled out for y'all. I know that there was people who filled this council here yesterday, also not yesterday, recently, also spelling basic things out for y'all. And I'm just here to say step up or step down. And I mean that. I don't know under what legacies you're all running, because I don't know y'all. I don't know who represents 42nd and Main Street. Do you mind raising your hand if you're in my word? Is that you, Sean?
No, it's the line. But keep going. We'll come back to it.
Well, point is, you're not all very well known in the community because you all just don't really capture my interest or represent my values, really. The fact that I'm here saying save the library means you failed. The question should be, how do we fund the library? How do we expand services? I am a service worker. I am probably more well known to locals than you all. And I'm just not content with your leadership. I think that it lacks a whole lot. The fact that, you know, there's not, was there folks in this council that were part of this payroll initiative to fund the library? I hope so. I don't see a whole lot of coverage on it at any city pages, and I really don't care what the process to give some platform to this funding of essential services is. You'll need to do better and put this out in the public, because every single Springfield person should care about this, and you all should care about this, and this is what you should be running for. Sean, I gotta say, I don't think that I would vote for anybody to be in our city council that isn't like just not only in our city council and our board of commissioners that isn't like making this his platform. The fact that we need fucking services at the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name's Carol, and I live up off of Day Street by Walnut Park. And I moved to Springfield about 3 years ago. Since I'm 5 years old, the library has been my safe place. I don't care if I'm living on Maui, San Francisco, Alaska, Portland, or Springfield. It's the single most important institution there is for me. I'm not in need of hospitalization, but I know that's another important one. I believe that this payroll tax is a current necessary step to fully fund the library. And I'm really curious if you feel safe to divulge how many of you have library cards? And do you all use them once a week, once a month? Regular, don't use them regularly. Okay, well, that's good to know. I just want to know that you're dependent on this library because I have a lot of friends that have lots of money for lots of books and I don't. So I go to Powell's bookstore and I take pictures of I go to this library, and $89,000 cut to their library budget to me is like banning books. It's the same thing. If you can't buy new books, banning books. The librarians in my mind are guardians of our First Amendment right to freedom of speech. And I think that this important institution is not just realistically symbolically for that exact same reason. So thank you. Hopefully you're going to go for this.
Thank you. The next two cards I have are Kyra Carroll and Carol Ann Walker.
Hi, my name is Kyra Carroll. I'm a resident of the county with the Eugene address. I don't live in Springfield. So I'm here as a retired speech and language pathologist. I used to work for OHSU and I worked with children who have disabilities, including children with dyslexia. And I think all of you probably know that getting a good foundation for reading is a good predictor of future success. Okay. And I used to have a Eugene library card. And in fact, I could have one more cheaply volunteering there. And I was recently urged to switch from volunteering at the Springfield Library, which I do weekly, to volunteering in Eugene. And of course, they have a beautiful library, but you have a gem here. I hope you all will do whatever it is needed. And I think the payroll tax, as I understand it, is a good way to provide some funding that will save the gem that you have. And I was really surprised actually to see how many of you have library cards, because I know that one of my fellow volunteers has tried to get you individually to talk with you about the library. And if you haven't, he is an amazing person who knows more about libraries than 99% of the population. But anyway, I really love this library and I would not want to see it lose its excellent reputation. And every time I go there, I'm so pleased to see the children pouring in and getting the services they need. So I'm really glad that you all have library cards, almost all of you. And I hope if you don't know much about the services that they do provide now, that you will really look into that. And thank you for your time, because I know you're putting in a lot of effort, and I really appreciate that, each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Ann, and this is Vera Lynn, and we live in 97478. Yep, Springfield for 3 years. And what do we love?
Abigail.
Miss Abigail. We love Miss Abigail. We love our library. We love story time. She's right. It's a gem. Not all libraries are like this. Safe, welcoming, warm, things for the kids to play with and engage with, so many available resources. A community since we've been here. This has been the place where we have made our friends, found the gems, gained sanity. Story time is just as much for moms and caregivers as it is for the kids. And so we just want to show our support, and it sounds like the budget conversation is May. So if, budget cuts are going to affect the library, then we would definitely be in support of fully funding it with the tax. And I think if we want to think about and solve and find solutions for the greater problems in our community and the world, it starts here. It starts with all these little kids in the audience and being here to support this. It starts at places like the library with these resources and helping moms and caregivers and dads and families learn how to be good in this world. So thank you. You say thank you?
Thank you.
And I think you just made Abigail's whole day back there. I see her. Thank you. The next two people I have are Vonnie Mickelson and Ashir Moyer. Hopefully I got that. Oh.
Go first. Okay. He says I can go first, so that's really kind of him. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm Vonnie Mickelson. I'm first and foremost a resident of Springfield. I live here, I work here. I'm committed to retiring here soon. And I also am responsible for running a local nonprofit with a small but mighty team of 8 that live on the margins and slim margins for economic development, and that's the Springfield Chamber of Commerce. We represent 800 members, employers, and employing some 20,000 more jobs across the region. And I'd like to share our perspective with you this evening. Because the hearing's specific to the payroll tax, I want to be direct about our position. The Chamber's open to the shared payroll tax at the rate currently proposed at 0.1% for employers and 0.1% for employees. And we support applying those percentages to gross payroll and gross wages. That design choice already moves the revenue outcome above the original task force revenue target of 2.4 million. So we are amenable to what amounts to an effective increase, but we are not necessarily supportive of unnecessary expansion of the tax rate beyond what is proposed now. Here's why we're urging you to hold that line. First, Springfield has to pair short-term stabilization with long-term growth. A payroll tax may help close an immediate gap, but it cannot replace the structural solution of growing Springfield's tax base through business retention, expansion, and development. If the payroll tax rate keeps rising, it begins to work against those growth priorities we need for real fiscal sustainability. So second, even at today's proposed rate, timing and layering matter. Employers are already, as all of you know, absorbing compounded pressures from the corporate activities tax, paid leave, transit payroll, and transportation gas taxes, regular late cost, and inflation. So we asked employers this year what the ground truth feels like, and Springfield still scores, congratulations, up to 2 points higher for business friendliness than Eugene, Lane County, and the state. And that's on a scale of 1 to 10, so 2 points is big. That's a hard-won advantage. The same survey shows inflation, wage pressure, regulation, and taxes dominate the challenge list. And growth is cooling compared to previous years, even while optimism remains strong. So that combination is exactly why restraint matters. And we do not want the payroll tax to become the default backstop for every service pressure. Finally, if you advance this proposed rate, guardrails are essential. That means simple administration, 12 months notice before implementation, a 3-year rate lock, independent oversight, transparent public reporting, voter referral for any future base rate increase, and a clear plan for reinvesting any surplus into community and economic vitality priorities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I am Asher Muir and I represent the kids that come to the library every day and like check out books. And for me, the library is a place to explore your like imagination and your reading abilities and like a place to explore and a place to have fun. And I think that the kids that come here every day, maybe they walk here or they come with parents and stuff. They could be like teenagers or like kids who want to like get ahead in class or like just have fun. Cutting the budget for the library just makes it less valuable of a place to go. And I guess I don't want to see the library that I've been going to just have less people being able to like explore their imagination, like doing stuff and like reading books. And a budget cut, like cutting like books and like staff and stuff, it'll just make more people like disappointed in when they go to the library and thinking about how the library could be like better and just be disappointed instead of being able to have fun, like read books and stuff at the library. So.
Before you go, Asher, could you say what part of the city you're from? Do you live in downtown? Do you live in Thurston?
144 11th Street.
Perfect. Thank you. You did a great job. All right. We talked about checking in at 30 minutes. I've got one more card left, and then how are we doing on?
We're doing fine on hands, just one.
Okay. The last card I have is Diego Hernandez Zapata. And if you just gave the card, they come up, you're up. I don't have your card to read your name yet, but come on. And Melissa. No. There you go.
I'm Diego Sebastian Hernandez Zapata. I'd like to represent the Hispanic community of Springfield and the organizations that work with the Springfield Public Library. A major one is one that my mother organized called the Eugene Arte Latino. Pardon, I forgot to mention I'm also living in Eugene. Eugene Arte Latino, Herencia, Cultura y Herencia Cultural with Antonio Huerta. These people have formed so many beautiful cultural events here with the library for many years to provide just the outlook of the culture. They provide activities, workshops, incredible things that it's so stunning to see facilitated here in Springfield with the library, the assistance of many people that I know that are employed here at the library. I would hope that you guys support the full funding for the mothers that I know. These people have supported, especially the migrant families that are enduring slightly psychological torture or very, it's horrible behavior from the, I don't know how to describe it without being too dramatic, but obviously the administration. The support that I've seen from people here from the Springfield Public Library provided for these migrant families, as I say, is something I haven't seen in Eugene. These people have gone out of their way to go to businesses to speak to people who normally wouldn't have that information. They go out of their way to provide exact information to defend the businesses and the people who are making those businesses thrive, their families. There's accommodations for nutrition, support. Some of these people are afraid to leave their houses because they're being terrorized, racially profiled. And they have their guardian angels here at the library defending them, at least in some sort of way. So please support them. Their kids, also just all the people of the community that could use reformation through education. Not necessarily just kids, but everybody has that right to reform and re-educate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Benzel, and I live here in Springfield. And I work here in Springfield. I've had a library card since I was 10, and it was also my safe space. I wasn't inspired to come up here brave enough until Asher did. So thank you so much, Asher. You actually made me cry tonight. I was one of those kids that went to the library to have a safe place and to learn. And I am really proud that I have kept going to school because of the library. I'm really proud to call Springfield my home and raise both my boys coming to this library, to every Lego club, the reading clubs, every club. This was our club. I am really proud that this library helped to inspire and support my family and me becoming a dental hygienist and helping to support our community here. And I'm here for my boys, for my boys' boys, for my boys' boys' boys, all my community. And I really am in full support of anything that needs to happen to support our library. If this payroll tax is the solution, then I'm a huge proponent of it. I'm really proud of what we do here in Springfield, and I will be really proud to help save this library. Thank you so much for listening and being here tonight, and I appreciate all of you. God bless.
Thank you. That is the last card I have. Neil, could you call any hands that we have raised?
Yes, there are two hands right now. Kai Fireside, followed by Beth Halverson. And Kai, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Kai Fireside. I live inside Ward 1. Council, the task force didn't seem to give you a ton of good options, which is unfortunate. I understand you don't get to set details of the payroll tax tonight and that you're not deciding on the library directly tonight. But tonight starts the decisions you make that will affect the library funding. I do have a library card. I returned 3 physical books to the library drop box on Sunday, and I borrow countless audiobooks through the library. I hope you direct staff to move forward with implementation of the payroll tax and to find a rate which ensures no library cuts whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the next speaker is Beth Halverson. And Beth, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. Thank you. I am Beth Halverson. I am in Ward 2. I grew up in Springfield. I graduated in 2003 from Springfield High. I returned to Springfield in 2015, and now I'm working at Looking Glass at the Springfield Clinic. So I support so many families to manage their needs and their resources, and I use the library every week to help them connect in. I don't know if you all understand how big of a mental health resource this library is. I can help a family find a community if they go to a reading partner, help them find someone else that's maybe struggling with the same thing. I can connect them with a librarian who can help them find the resource. The library is the last free space that we have in our community. And it is such a bastion of education and connection. I love that I have gone there across my life. I love that I have had visitation with my kids' birth mom in that library space, and how amazing librarians were to help us through the good times and the tough times. I love that we've celebrated in the VR space when we finally mastered a level. And most importantly, I love that my kid loves the teen group so much. It is such a big support. I know that like all of the numbers might not show just how important this space is in our community, but I am such a support of using a payroll tax, increasing it just a nominal amount to make sure that we keep this space a resource, make sure that we keep it a fun, loving place where people of all socioeconomic statuses and all backgrounds can come and find whatever they need. So I just fully support that. And I want to thank everyone for speaking. You also brought me to tears many times. Thank you.
No other speakers for this item, Mayor?
Okay. Sorry, I meant to excuse you. You're more than welcome to stay and hang out with us. Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to make a couple of comments. Then I am going to open it up for the rest of the council before we get to the action, which is the resolution tonight. First of all, we've just been in a series of just tough community conversations, right? Like I appreciate you folks coming out and filling the council chambers and sharing where your hearts are and where your experiences are. They mean a lot to us. The fiscal challenges of the city are like 35 years old. So I want to recognize that this community, including people in this room, including the business community, including, all the volunteers, we have worked towards solving a fiscal cliff that has basically been 35 years in the making. And we're almost close to the finish line. It is really hard, some of the hardest political work we've all done to try to get the city in a place where it's more fiscally balanced. Now, one of the things I want to just talk through for a second, and then I'm going to refer to a comment that I think the chamber made. We have a ton of needs out there. And so in the context of the next couple of comments, we have a ton of fire needs. We have a ton of building needs. We have a ton of deferred maintenance. We have a ton of road maintenance. So I want in this entire conversation, and I know it's really hard because you guys have your own nightly lives to go to, but the library isn't the only need that's out there. And I think my concern remains that if we start opening up the overall rate, then we're going to try to address all our potential needs out there and make this unsustainable. Now, with that being said, and I think this is the important thing where we're hearing you, the chamber made a reference to a change that we made in the methodology. And I know it sounds really technical, but really what it means is that there's more money there than what we expected. All right. So there's probably anywhere between, I don't know, maybe Nate, you can keep me honest here, probably between $300,000 to $500,000 more because in this current rate because of how we changed the methodology. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, how does that impact the library? Really, what I would recommend, or what I'm supportive of, is giving our finance staff a chance to reforecast the budget and provide the council with an updated range based on the rate and the changes that we made, knowing that we've effectively created more money there, even though the rate hasn't changed. So everybody's come into this room sort of saying, hey, could you change it another 100th? And I think my recommendation is let's get to the next conversation, ask finance to reforecast given the change in the rate. Long term, I favor getting this complete in the budget committee. That gives us a chance to weigh it as a community. but also the current payroll tax as it's written, like the library, like those dollars can be used for the library. Those dollars can be used for police, fire, everything that we used here. So that's good. I know if I was sitting in your chair, I would want to have this kind of resolved tonight so that you could, go and enjoy your enjoy Christmas and the holidays. But I think my opinion is let us get updated numbers, right? Let us take this feedback and forward it to the city manager and consider that, as we put together next budget is to take all this community feedback and evaluate it at that point. And then lastly, I know folks are ready to jump in. I think the thing I keep thinking about out a long drive to Portland today was that where do we want to be as a community in 2037? Right. And I think this entire conversation has been working to this question about library services and how, like, where does this community want to be? How do we potentially get there? And I think where my head is really kind of turning that corner and going, okay, what do we need from library services? What do we need from groups like you? And then what is potentially that gap and how do we solve that as a community? So really just to repeat myself is I think there's more money there. It's valuable to give us time to forecast and have the next conversation and do some technical work and understand the state of our new finances based on changes that we've already made as we've worked this process. Your feedback, I think we forward it to the city manager so that as the budget gets put together for this next year, we consider all of that feedback and then ask her to propose, obviously, a balanced budget for what our needs are. Also, the 42nd Street comment, in case you were wondering, 42nd Street is the boundary between two wards. So if we all looked at each other like where that word was, yeah, it's literally the boundary. It depends on what side you're on. Okay, Councilor Rodley.
Thank you. And I'll just take just a minute because I think you did a really good job of laying out what the next steps are. Just want to thank everyone for coming out and continuing to come out and sending letters and asking for meetings and all of the things. It is very important I will just speak for myself, to understand and to feel in solidarity with my neighbors and understand that we're all building the community that we want while we're tackling these problems. So I want to thank you for coming out. I know you don't get a lot back from us because of just the way this is set up, but thank you. Please stay engaged. Let's take this through into the spring. Thank you.
Councilor Blackwell.
Yes, it's not always easy being on this side of the dais, right? There's big financial questions that we're grappling with and trying to solve. And I just want to say I really appreciate any time that the community members show up and speak to us and give, your experience and your thoughts, because anytime we can hear your voice, whether it's an email that we get or in person, it really does, help us shape and form the next steps in our head. So I appreciate you all being here.
Councilor Mo.
The mayor expressed very clearly our future is limited. We only have X number of dollars in the city to spend. This year, we used to have a surplus. We're out of that surplus. So we have to run on exactly what comes in now. So city services have to be paid by that. What are we going to cut? Well, libraries are very important. There's other services too that are going to be affected by this limit income, and that's coming down the line. And so libraries one, there's everything else, fire, maybe many other services are going to be affected by the budget. So be aware.
Councilor Weber.
The mayor did lay out a lot of the struggles that we're facing as we work through this very challenging conversation. It isn't easy to sit up here and know that we potentially are disappointing members of our community. The realities are we have a general fund being used by the library in excess of $2 million with very little revenue coming in. And I'm going to say, not only do I have a library card, which I would be very happy to pay for if it would help solve this issue. I served as the treasurer for the foundation board for 2 or 3 years. And this conversation isn't new. It's been following us for a really, really long time, and that's part of the problem. It's built up on us to this point where we have some really difficult decisions to make. And I'm again say, I don't want to disappoint anybody in this community. I value the library. I understand the importance of it. And I hope that you will continue to work through this with us and understand that the business community does have a right to have their voices heard in this conversation as well. Employees are going to be tapped to pay whatever it is that we ask of them. And we're not the only ones asking for additional payroll taxes, additional taxes of any kind from our community members, and those all add up. And it's just, I just want to say, I love the library too. And I hope we can find a solution that everybody can leave feeling at least somewhat good about. And we have a lot of time still to talk about this. So keep sharing, keep coming. The conversation's not done yet. Just know that. Thank you.
Counselor Stout.
I really appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you very much for your comments. Just a comment from a community member and library volunteer that spoke to me. Jim Launiger is one of my heroes in this community. He used to be the mayor of Kirkland, Washington, and stood up for a tremendous number of citizen interests above corporate interests. And he said to me something that always stuck with me, which is that since our conversation, is that the library is like an adolescent child. We have to be careful with it. We have to nurture it because you have something here that is so precious that needs to emerge into something that is just about ready. And so the last thing I think any of us want to do is to cut off that beautiful growth and the beautiful things that librarians and community members are doing on behalf of our community. So you have my sincere respect and support as much as we can possibly give, giving some extremely frustrating constraints that we all face every day. And I believe the mayor put those out quite eloquently. So thank you.
Councilor Buck.
I think that a lot of my colleagues have done, excuse me, a better job of talking about, some of the challenges we face as counselors. And then, as many of you know, I'm new to the council, but also I really appreciate how many of you have come out to talk with us about your experiences, your values, because one of the things that Springfield has done a very good job of is cultivating community conversation. As I've said before, my kids value the library. My kids get what they need at the library when they're not getting it somewhere else. My kids don't ask to go to a bookstore; they ask to go to the library. It's my son doesn't necessarily love to read, but he loves all the other programs. And maybe if we go see some cool stuff at the library, maybe we can find a cool book. Possibly, no guarantees there. My daughter would just live at the library. And I think that it's important to know that we all take this seriously and we all do value what we have in the library. And more importantly, we value you guys showing up and talking to us because, as it was commented here, we do represent the community to the best of our ability, but that what aids our ability is hearing from you guys. So the emails that we get, the letters that we get, you guys coming and talking with us, that's vital to us being able to do our job and do the best for you guys in Springfield. So I appreciate you guys coming out, and I appreciate all the people that spoke tonight. Please continue to do that on every issue. The more we talk, the better solutions and outcomes we can have.
All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay, got it. I move to adopt a resolution directing staff to develop a payroll tax for council review and deliberation.
Second.
Yes, Counselor Weber,
Yes.
Counselor Mo,
Yes.
Counselor Rodley, Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Buck. Yes, and Counselor Stout.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes 6 yeses, 0 nos. This is our only item for this meeting. We are adjourned. Feel free. We've got CETA next, but we are going to have to reconfigure the room a little bit and bring one more board member up. So it'll be just a couple more minutes before we start. If you want to go home, that is okay too.